this real? Several recent encounters suggest there might be more things in heaven and earth than we can dream of.
So are werewolves just a Hollywood creation, or do half-man, half-wolf creatures really exist? Now, tonight, we kick off our Conspiracy Theory Month series, which was a...
The legend of the vampire actually goes back for centuries, and it exists in some form or another in almost every culture. In fact, some people believe the first vampire story was in the Bible.
Well, for decades, only crackpots and crazy people believed in UFOs. That's what I thought anyway. And then in recent years, it turns out that governments have been taking them seriously all along.
Try and clear up an ancient mystery with the help of a prominent veterinarian who says she can prove that Bigfoot exists, and that he's related to all of us.
New reports, 5 pilots coming forward over the weekend saying they've had multiple mid-air encounters with high-flying, fast-moving objects.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Celestial Oddities Pair of Normal Guys podcast. I am your host, Garrett Jagaman.
I am your co-host, Daniel James.
We want to thank you for listening in tonight to a special episode that we do a few times a year or a few times a season called Oddword. And what that is where we take listeners' phone calls and also tell our own tales of the supernatural and paranormal and kind of jump back and forth on different theories and thoughts. So we do have a caller tonight that we're going to be bringing on to the show, interviewing her, speaking to her about her experiences and going back and forth. And then Daniel has some special stories that he would like to tell you from things that have happened to him earlier in his life that I'm certainly excited to hear about. So stick around for that, but make sure you click the like, share, and follow button on whatever platform you're listening to us from iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Deezer, you name it, we are on it. Click those buttons, moves us up the podcast community rankings, allows more people to discover the show, keeps you in the loop as new episodes air, and gives you unfiltered access to our past archives. If you are a fan of the supernatural and the paranormal, the strange and, obscure, we certainly bring that to you with this show every other Thursday night from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As I said before, across all platforms. So listen where you feel comfortable. You can download it to your device for on the go, so if you can't listen to it live, don't fret. You can always listen to it after the fact. If you have suggestions of what you want to hear us talk about on the show, things you want to see us do or not do, feel free to drop us a line at celestialaddities@gmail.com or at Celestial Oddities Pair of Normal Guys podcast page on Facebook. Well, Dan, we got another great episode planned for tonight.
Yes, I'm going to be fully transparent with everybody. I had a ton of people lined up to call in on tonight's episode, and then I started getting cancellations left and right. And it kind of worked out well because I also want to give a story of my own. So we have a special caller here in a few minutes, so we're going to get her on the line, and she's going to share one of her paranormal stories with us first. And then once that call has ended, I'm going to lead you guys into my childhood. When I was a teenager, I grew up in Olympia, Washington, and there were ley lines that ran underneath all of western Washington state, and there was a lot of paranormal activity for me growing up. So I will be telling you guys about 3 specific experiences I had in my childhood home.
No, I can't wait to hear about it, and might even spark some things from myself that I care to tell tonight as well, because there's certainly a few things that I've talked about on the show that I've never fully dived into, and a few things that I've never told. So should be a great and fun episode. We look forward to that. We do want to thank our sponsor, Cryptid TV. If you are a fan of the paranormal, which obviously if you are listening you are, you can check them out on Facebook as well, also on YouTube, and just search their name on Google. It brings up a lot of different material. Cryptid TV, they are a community of people that are like-minded to you and I, where we talk over different topics, theories, and ideas. No judgment, no hassle. Just a great way to meet other people in the community, same as our page. So it's another great page out there to connect with folks and see new things. I constantly see things I've never heard of before and vice versa. So it's nice to be able to kind of back and forth give ideas on things, because there's so much out there that we just don't know and don't understand. So much love to them for, being a sponsor of the show. If you missed our last episode, we did have Pete Mander of P Mander Effects on, Hollywood. He's not in Hollywood, but I call him a Hollywood special effects artist because he is the level of a movie special effects artist as far as his costumes, his designs, and sets. Absolutely phenomenal. So if you missed that interview, make sure you jump back and check that out, along with any of our past episodes as well. We are in Season 2, and tonight is episode 11. So we're 11 deep already, Dan, into this season. I think we got a handful left, and then we'll be closing out the doors for season 2. But what a great, season we've had.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I really like to engage with people. We love talking to people in the chat, and I did hope that we would have a few more callers tonight, because that's one of my favorite things, is getting the people calling in to share their stories. But we are definitely having fun, and we appreciate you guys being here with us.
We absolutely do, and thank you, Dan, for the work that you've done for tonight's episode. Folks, last week and a half for myself has been a little bit tough. We had a sudden passing in our family, and there's been a lot of affairs and things that need to be taken care of in the last week, and the last 2 days was the viewing and funeral. So been running around pretty crazy. It's been a hard and stressful and saddening time for us here, and Dan has really helped keep putting things together here for tonight's show. Unfortunately, there were some cancellations, but he had a really nice crew of people lined up, and sometimes, unfortunately, that just happens. But thank you, Dan. And this episode I would like to dedicate to Crowbar, my father-in-law who passed away suddenly. Much love to you. He was like a second father to me, and this episode, sir, is dedicated to you. So let's take a look here. We should, I guess, give a call to our guest of the evening. So let me just pull up here and make sure. Yep, okay. So I will make it as a phone call here. Let me just pull up the number, folks. I like to do this with you guys. Some radio shows will have the caller already on the line. If it's just a one-on-one interview, I normally do. But for things like this, I like to have you guys hear it as it happens. So what we're doing, pulling up the number. And Dan, what was this young lady's name?
Lana?
Lana. Okay, so let's give her a call.
Or Lana?
Hello, is this Lana? Hi, Lana. This is Frater Crow from Celestial Oddities Radio. We got Daniel James here with us as well. We have you live on the air. We wanted to give you a call. Thank you for your time this evening and wanting to come onto the show and share with us your experiences with the supernatural. So we like to jump right into it. If you want to tell us who you are, a little bit about yourself, and then jump into the experience of what you've experienced, we would love to hear it and then give some ideas on that. Ooh, I think we lost her, folks. She jumped off. She said, hell with this, I'm done. No, let's give her a call back.
Can you turn her volume up a little bit by chance?
I certainly can. Let's do that.
She's a little quiet. She also sent me her Skype ID as well, if you want to try that.
Okay. I'll try her again on this, and if we lose her, then I will certainly... Well, while you guys are waiting out there, as I said, we have a few more episodes planned. Oh, maybe. Maybe not. Well, either way, we have a few more episodes planned for you this season. Yeah, it seems like the connection is not going through properly, but we have a few episodes left this season for you guys. Few more interviews, a little bit more content that we're going to deep dive into, which is Daniel and I's specialty as far as our show. We love doing the call-in shows, we love doing the interviews, but we do certainly love doing the deep dives. So we have a few more things planned for you, and then we're going to start gearing up for season 3 in early of next year. So as we finish out in the next month or so of the show, next 2 months, we'll be taking a little bit of time off, couple months off, gearing up for a new season, topics, ideas, guests, lining up call shows. So if you have any ideas for us, please don't hesitate to reach out on that end. We certainly would love to talk to you and hear what you guys have to say. Dan, why don't you tell us a little bit of something while I look up this young lady and see if I can find her. You sent that over to me, you said, correct?
Yeah, on both your Facebook and your Skype chat, I sent you her live ID and her name.
Oh, perfect. There it is. Okay.
Spelled in a specific way, so hopefully she'll be able to.
All right.
Yeah, guys, listen, we just like bringing you guys our personal experiences and sharing the paranormal esoterica with you. And we like collecting your stories as well, because these are all things, as Frater and I mentioned when we were starting season 1, that we are inspired to start this show because we are living this path. We're walking this talk. He and I have both been immersed in the paranormal and the esoterica since we were kids and teenagers, and so it only makes sense that we were going to really just investigate these concepts and share our stories with you guys.
Okay, and while he was finishing up that, I was able to pull everything up. Let's give this young lady a call, and we're going to try this a different way this time. Well, folks, it might not be happening. Dan might just have to jump into his stories. It seems like we are not connecting.
Bummer. I heard her for a second.
Hello.
Right? You heard her.
Lana, are you still there? It's like,
Did she answer?
I thought I heard her for a quick moment. Lana, are you there?
Hello?
Can you hear me? Oh, not a problem. Well, we have you live on the air at the moment. I was just saying that we appreciate you coming on to the show to tell us a little bit about what you experienced with the supernatural and paranormal. So why don't you tell us who you are, what area you're from, and then go ahead and jump right into the story. We would love to hear it and then give you some ideas and thoughts of our own.
Experience.
You know what? Wait one moment if you don't mind, Lana. For some reason, people are saying they can't hear you, but we can hear you. Dan, can you hear her?
No. It's kind of like it was that one time where she sounds really far away.
I wonder why. Bear with us one moment if you don't mind. The phone was working great, but I think the Spreaker for some reason isn't connecting correctly.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Or not the Spreaker, but the Skype, excuse me. So let's just try something here, folks. I apologize. These call shows, seems like, the powers that be don't like our call-in shows. We're always good, no matter if we do interviews, anything, we're always fine. The call-in show seems like, for some reason, everything just goes haywire. But let's take a look. Now, if for some reason this doesn't work, did you say your phone was dead, so you couldn't take an actual phone call then? Was it still charged now? Because I might have to try to call you on there, because it seems like the Skype is not connecting to our system, which is weird because I can hear you clear as day, but it seems like I'm the only one.
Okay, well, I'm on Messenger. We can also FaceTime. I can give you my direct number.
I have the direct number. I called that earlier. It seemed like you answered and it clicked off. So if I called you back on that, would you be able to answer that?
Sure deal.
Okay, let me try that for you. I'll call you back in about 3 seconds.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, folks, I apologize for any technical difficulties. I'm not sure what the hell goes on with these shows. Like I said, everything's checked beforehand. Everything works beforehand. Then the show comes live, and it's like, nope, don't think so. But let's go ahead and try back on the regular phone is what we tried originally. But for some reason, it didn't seem to work. So I'm trying that again now, and we should have signal there. So let's try that out. Hello. I can hear you again, but it seems like the system. Can you say something again?
Hello.
There we go.
Oh, that's better.
All of a sudden, there you are. So that was the problem. I don't know why. Skype didn't like it for some reason. Well, I apologize for the interruption as you started to tell your story. Go ahead and start again if you wouldn't mind, and we'll let you, tell us what it is that you experienced.
Okay, not a problem. Yes, my name is Lana. I'm from Southwest Louisiana, born and raised. In the beginning, growing up, I guess I'd say that my first paranormal experience was whenever I was like 6 years old. I've seen aircraft that I guess you could say that's unidentified in the skies since that age. I've seen dozens, and I've experienced, I guess you could say, interaction with interdimensional beings twice. And then I recently had a dream that was so vivid, and I came across historical evidence that supports the dream that I had, was similar to that of like cathedral paintings in the ceiling. So I don't know if you'd like for me to discuss the two extraterrestrial encounters I've had and then the dream, or if you'd just like me to give you one story.
No, feel free to share with us whatever you're willing to share, whatever experiences you think are pertinent. We would love to hear.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess it was in 2014. I saw a UFO in the sky, and this would probably have been my ninth UFO I saw in the sky, and I telepathically communicated with it that I wanted to make contact. I wanted to communicate with them. And I mean, I invited it, and that night, I went to sleep and I was kind of nervous because I felt like maybe, I don't know, something different I felt something different that night. Anyways, around 11 o'clock that night, there was this being that appeared before me, and it was almost like it was being projected from my mind. Like wherever I looked in the room, it was center focused, and I could not get it out of my head. And it was in control of my vision, and it was a bald, androgynous, bluish, transparent being. And I saw eyes everywhere around the figure, eyes everywhere. And it was the most beautiful being I've ever seen in my life. It was almost like it wasn't real, and it was so vivid, and it was, I don't know if it was trying to relay information to me or not, but once I kind of felt a little bit comfortable, the next minute, like within a split second, I had the most horrible anxiety that I've ever experienced in my life. It was like pain, and I tried to look away. I curled up in a ball in my bed, and I tried praying, and it didn't work. And I looked up, and it's still hovering over me. It felt like my soul was being sucked from my body. And I said, Jesus, and I watched it dissipate. I realized that the Galactic Federation of Light was, I kind of came to formulated my own opinion about it, that they were actually fallen angels and not so much alien entities. But I do think that there are good angels and there are bad angels. I may have come in contact with two specifically. The second experience was in 2018, December 28th. It was 3 days after Christmas. And are you still following me?
Absolutely.
Okay. My best friend came down from Illinois, and she was staying the weekend with me, and we went down to the pool, and we were listening to really upbeat, positive music like Leon Thomas, and just the vibrations were very, very high, and I just felt complete joy and peace and just happiness and essentially love, like, and we were just having a great time, and I hadn't felt that vibrationally high in such a long time. And I noticed that something in my back was bothering me. Something in my back was like electrifying my back. And I had found a spot on my back, which was weird after the first experience with that first extraterrestrial. Anyways, that night I went to sleep after we watched, just different Oriental music from around the world, and we just had an awesome time. And I woke up and I saw gray alien over me, and it had long, lanky fingers. It was about 7 foot tall, big black eyes. Its head was huge, and unproportionate with the rest of its body. It had a suit. It had it was like a bodysuit, and it had a zipper that went down from its neck all the way down, and it had a almost like silverish triangular emblem on the left side of its chest. And I just remember being in almost a state of sleep paralysis. The first experience, I was not in a state of sleep paralysis. I was sitting up and moving. This second experience, it was almost like a state of sleep paralysis. I could not move my body, but internally I was cussing this entity out. Because I knew that it was disrupting my toroidal auric field. It was bothering me negatively and tampering with me. And I looked around the room, and it almost seemed as though I wasn't in my room, like I was in a pod, like I was laying down in a bed that wasn't actually my bed. And I was looking around the room, and I somehow managed to attain the strength to sit up. And I started to sit up. The moment that I actually started, and which is unheard of in sleep paralysis stories, that you can actually sit up. There was another gray in the back of my room that started to come forward, and this gray specifically had a black suit on and the same emblem on his chest. But I don't know. I guess he was his superior. He walked over to me with his long, lanky fingers, and he injected something into my left arm, where my vein is on your arm, where you normally draw blood. And my gosh, they disappeared, and I immediately sat up. It was almost like they put me back to sleep, if that makes sense. Like
absolutely.
I was awake in the real world, and they put me back in the simulation or something.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because we've talked about that on past episodes, where waking up from a programmed holographic reality into a real world and then going back into the simulation. So yes, it's almost as you've seen, possibly behind the curtain what's really going on, and then they kind of put you back into it, or they were able to give you something that you experienced in this reality, but they made it almost seem like a dream. So when they gave it to you and you woke up again in this reality, you're like, did that really happen? Was that really an event, or was that something I just concocted in my mind? But something you said that was very interesting to me about the first experience was the fact that the being had multiple eyes around it. Now, the seraphim angels are known to have multiple wings and be made and covered in thousands of eyeballs. And they are one of the highest forms of angelic beings that there are, which would almost to most people seem very alienistic. They don't look like the angels you see depicted in church, stained glass windows, or on, the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel and places like that. They have multiple wings, and they look almost like an owl creature with many, many eyes. They're quite terrifying, actually. So that reminded me when you said that is very, very resonant with me, that whether it is a good angel or it's a fallen angel, as you put, there are forms of angelic beings that do come across as alienistic, that do have that trait.
Yeah. One thing I must say about the second experience was that I have never in my entire life felt more alive than I did in that moment when it pushed me down back on the bed and injected something into my arm. And the moment that they disappeared and I, quote unquote, woke up back into this world, I looked around the room and I saw my painting in the corner of the room, and I just began to cry. And I said out loud, they're trying to keep humanity from doing what we love. They're trying to keep us from love. That high vibration is what will wake us all up, that will literally, I feel as though oh my gosh, there's something that I forgot to mention about this story.
Okay.
Whenever I was at the pool and we were listening to that music, my reality around me was shifting in a way. I looked at the sky and I saw a flock of birds fly over me, and it made a geometrical smiley face. And I pointed it to my friend Sarah. I said, look. And as we both saw it. And I said, this place isn't real. I said that to her. I don't know why I forgot to mention that part of the story.
Well, that's okay. I'm glad that you at least recapped back onto it. So it just kind of solidifies the fact that you beforehand felt something off and knew something was strange, and then later that night, sure enough, an event happened. And a lot of times large events are signaled and forewarned by smaller events before and both afterwards. It's almost like an earthquake with small tremors to kind of announce its arrival, and then even afterwards announce its departure. Same thing with very large supernatural or paranormal events, whether it be, in the field of spirits, whether it be angels, higher intelligences, or aliens. A lot of times there are other things that seem to happen in correlation with that large event that kind of announce it. So that makes sense to me.
Yes. There's one last thing I'd like to share.
Please do.
It was a few months ago. I had a dream that I was floating. I was almost like being pulled up by some force. And I wasn't flying, but I was flying. And there were these black entities that were trying to pull me down as I was going up into the sky, and I was jumping on. I was like floating. Imagine kind of being like in space. And you're trying to jump from one tree to the next to get higher into the sky. And I was going towards the light in the sky. It was like the sun. And there were these entities trying to pull me down. Well, eventually I was lifted up in this round, almost like this round arena. And it wasn't really an arena. It had levels. It had 6 levels, okay? And it had pillars. And there were these people that were within each story, each level. And I was in the center of the circle, which was like, a story upon story, 6 stories upon story upon story upon story. And it was trimmed with gold and mod, like a pink mod and light blues. And it was so beautiful. And as I floated up to the center, I looked up and there was this bright light, and it was God. And he told me that he loved me. And all that week I felt like I wasn't necessarily worthy of maybe going to heaven or something like that. Like I'm just not good enough. And I had that dream, and I drew it. Okay. And I was like, let me see if there's other people that have painted something similar to heaven. And I'm actually an artist. That's my trade. That's what I do. So I looked it up, and I looked for paintings of heaven. And in these cathedrals, they have these like levels, and where there's this circle and there's a light coming from the sky, and it's God. And there's so many paintings. You can look this up where it shows you different levels. And there was this guy on TikTok, and he painted something exactly the same to what I saw. And I realized that there are hundreds, there may be thousands of people that have seen what I've seen, which leads me to think that maybe it wasn't just an ordinary dream. And so what I'm going to do, and I did share this on TikTok, that I was going to paint this. I was going to paint it. And maybe, whenever I'm finished, if you would like to see it, I can share it with you. And I will share it on TikTok as well. But yeah, it's nice to talk to somebody about this other than my parents. And I feel like maybe, other people, would maybe gain something positive from my story. So thank you for letting me share this, my stories with you today.
Oh, absolutely. We're really glad that you were able to come on and share your stories. We definitely do want to see the painting once you finalize and finish that. If you would share that with us, that would be great. Not only would we like to see it individually, but we would love to post it in our group on Facebook for people to see it and see if there's others out there who have seen that or experienced something similar. Because what Daniel and I have noticed over time is that there's a lot of stories that people have that they feel so alone in that experience, but once they do talk about it like you have tonight, they realize how not alone they actually are. And there's so many other people with similar experiences that have had, sometimes almost identical experiences. It's really quite mind-boggling, and we've done that time and time again where we've taken on callers and they're explaining to us things that are very similar to what a caller last season might have said. And it's profound, the level of weird and strange things that are out there, and we love to hear that from people because you're not alone in this and you shouldn't feel alone. So we're glad that you could get the comfort tonight of sharing that and, getting it off your shoulders, so to speak, but to also allow anybody out there listening to maybe say, "Wow, I've seen that." So, Daniel, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I would love to actually weigh in on what you've said, and I want to thank you as well. Your stories that you've shared are like the textbook protocol type of stories that this is a safe place for you. Okay, this is a safe place. This is like who we are. Like what you're sharing with us is. That's what we do. Okay. So thank you very much for being so vulnerable. And I hope that, sharing was cathartic for you. I'd like to sort of just touch on, what my thoughts are about your stories from my own perspective. I know that you and I are friends on Facebook, but we haven't really talked much before this, but I actually work with the extraterrestrial consciousness. So I am an extraterrestrial channel, and so I'm in sort of anything aliens, ET. That's my expertise. And one thing that I wanted to tell you about your encounters is a couple things. Like, say, for example, you had a face-to-face experience, and this was part and parcel to sleep paralysis. So Frater and I have actually done an entire episode about sleep paralysis, where we've talked about all of the entities that people can experience while in this state, what causes it, why does it happen. And oftentimes what I see in all of my work is one of the most common themes in sleep paralysis is, yes, you are having some sort of intervention, usually with ET consciousness. Now, one thing that I can tell you is, here's a really important thing I want to tell you about ETs. There are good guys, there are bad guys, there are positives, and there are negatives. But one way that you can always tell the difference if you're having an experience or an encounter with an extraterrestrial is the prime directive. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the prime directive, but what that means is there is a no contact order between extraterrestrial races and humans. Okay? So if you are a positive, loving being of light, you will follow these rules. If you are in a spaceship, you're in a craft, you can let humans see your spaceship, but you cannot have a face-to-face encounter with them. You can't let them see you in your home. You can't let them. You can't have a face-to-face encounter. That's part of the prime directive rule, is you're not supposed to interact with us. Okay, so whenever you do have a face-to-face encounter with an extraterrestrial, generally you're working with the more malevolent, sort of free will infringing type of races, because they will break those no contact orders. They will break that prime directive contact rule, and they will come into your home. They can do things in sleep paralysis, which is generally, to my experience, DNA modification. They can be doing, medical things that aren't necessarily always harmful, but they are foreign, and that is scary. Okay, so just one thing that I wanted to teach people who are listening, that when it comes to ETs, there are good guys and there are bad guys, and the good guys follow the prime directive rule. It's sort of like a space law, that if you are dealing with a race like humans on 3D Earth, You're not supposed to meddle or infringe on their free will or do anything that will sort of interfere with their development as a race. So whenever you do have encounters that are outside of the dream state, it's usually a sort of a more of a malevolent encounter. So that was one thing that I wanted to touch on as well. And I also really like that you mentioned geometry. So sacred geometry, I believe, is at the core fabric of all of our reality. I actually believe that our entire universe is built on a geometrical pattern that's moving in a very fast, complicated geometrical shape, and that everything is sacred geometry. But that's maybe a topic for a whole nother episode. But I'm glad that you mentioned it. So, because it's very important. Geometry is at the center of everything. And I also really liked how you said you saw was it birds, I think you said? The birds formed a pattern, and then you told your friend, you said that this place isn't real. Did I hear that correct?
Yes, I pointed up to the sky, and she also saw the geometrical smiley face. It looked like an animation.
It was, because we just did another episode on how holographic and sort of artificial our 3D reality is. Frater and I talk about it all the time, how sort of like reality, our physical reality at least, is very illusionary. I don't believe that it's as real as we make it. I actually have other theories that our dream state, or where our consciousness goes when we dream, or say for example astral projection, lucid dreaming, remote viewing, when you're having those sort of out-of-body experiences, I actually believe that those are more real than our physical reality, and that our physical reality is more of a dream than it is a waking life. So I can kind of agree with you in the sense that it's really not real. I think this is in a sense one part dream and one part maybe program or hologram in a sense. Have you ever heard of theories like that?
Yes. I would I also want to say that what you said about the good guys and the bad guys, in accordance with my research, here, that's correct what you said about that. And the simulation, yeah, that's why I felt honestly as though whenever they were standing over me, okay, I felt so alive. I felt awake, actually awake for the first time in my life. And the room around me didn't look like my room. It was white, and I felt like I was in a different bed. It looked like a different bed, the pod. So to say that sleep paralysis is almost like a figment of our imagination, which you didn't say, but that's what some scientists and doctors like to say, to dismiss people's stories. I was in another place, and I was put back to sleep. Like, there's something else that I'm being called to, or almost I feel like I should also share. There's another current. It was in 2019, I believe. I was wearing a crystal around my neck, and it was, I guess you could say, about 2 inches long and about 1 inch wide, and it was pretty big. And I made it, and I was wearing it around my neck for, I guess you could say, about 3 months. And then I saw a UFO in the sky outside, and they were just, I couldn't, I could just see it moving around, and I was like just kind of relaxed and just like, just staring at them, because I wasn't, I'd seen them dozens of times. And then I was like, I don't know why. I wanted to get my phone for some reason and get a video of it. And a part of me was like, nah, you don't really need to do that. But I've seen them so many times anyways. I just bolted towards the house, because it's just sitting there. It's sitting there, and I know I can get a picture. And the moment I did that, I heard a clank. And I was just ignored it. And I got my phone, I came back outside, and they were gone. And then I noticed my necklace was gone. My crystal was gone.
Wow.
I spent 30 minutes outside, probably longer than that, looking for this crystal, and I could not find it anywhere. And there's absolutely nowhere it could have just disappeared to, you know? I mean, it was just, it fell on the porch, I think, because I heard the clank and I had basically, I got this voice that was telling me, or it was just this information that was relayed back to me that basically my crystal was like a USB drive and they needed the information that was downloaded onto it.
Wow. That's pretty cool because I can totally confirm that. I can totally confirm that. Crystals are a type of consciousness. They're actually conscious like we are. They just have a different level of it, a different level of consciousness. And crystal energy is actually used by extraterrestrial races as a type of data transfer and data storage. I can 100% confirm that for you.
I mean, not to worry about the necklace. Move on with life.
That's really cool.
I'm like, I want my necklace back, but apparently everything has a purpose. So,
do you have any favorite crystal types? Like, say, for example, I like lapis lazuli.
Rose, always.
Rose quartz?
I don't know. I've always really connected with the love vibration of rose.
That's really cool. No, I'm fascinated by this.
Tiger eye, for some reason, tiger eye.
I would say just look at your crystals and your stones as conscious beings that have their own sort of place, you know, in reality. But I also look at them as a type of tool, you know, whether you do magic or you do, you know, some people work with all kinds of different modalities and exercises. I believe crystals are just a type of spirit technology that can be used for all kinds of amazing things once we tap into the energy and we understand that they are conscious and that they want to actually work with us. So that was a pretty cool little experience you had there where the crystal sort of disappeared, you know. Maybe your ET counterparts or your star family took it, maybe you downloaded something into the crystal that you were unaware of, and that's what they needed to extract. And you gave it to them.
Maybe so. I'm trying to think. There was something else that I had thought of. I guess that's all. Maybe I have to share.
Well, no, that's perfect. You shared some great stuff, and something I wanted to jump in on is the sound that you heard of the clanking that you maybe mistook for it falling and hitting the porch could actually be the sound of it pulling it from one area of your atmosphere to another. So as you've seen the vessel in the sky, and then all of a sudden you heard the chunk, that could have been it using the machinery that they have to pull it from almost like a wormhole from where you were to where it was, and you actually heard the vacuum sound rather than the sound of the clanking off wood, which could easily be mistaken as that. There is sound, and Daniel and I talked about this on one of our last episodes with Missing 411 of many people vanishing in the woods and being connected to aliens as well, is that a lot of times in correlation to the missing person, someone would hear a very strange, unnameable sound of
foreign sound,
of just a foreign, strange sound, and then that person would have vanished, and you no longer seen that person. And then what I believe that to be is them opening up a wormhole from where they are to where you are, or where your necklace was, pulling it through and closing it so incredibly quick that you don't even notice it happens. And what you're hearing is the opening and shutting in a mere second, and it makes a certain type of vacuum type sound. One other thing I wanted to comment on is, as we talked about earlier, the seraphim angels, one of the highest ranking angelic side of angels, they have eyeballs associated all over them with their multiple wings. They're six-winged creatures. One of the other things I can tell you from my experience, because Daniel and I work different realms but similar, he channels and works often with alienistic beings. I work from a ceremonial magic background with spirits such as angels and daemons, and I have been in the presence of angels before, and one thing I can tell you from that experience is that you have the greatest high of your life. And when you come into contact with them, there's no explaining it. It is a mind, body, soul, spirit, everything in between stimulation where you literally have never felt like it before. And if you never have an encounter again with one, you'll never feel like it again. It's unexplainable. So that's something you mentioned that certainly resonated with me as far as the feeling, because it's intoxicating. It is just turn you inside out intoxicating. So that really made me think of that. So thank you so much for everything you shared with us tonight. That's something that me and Dan will certainly ponder on. And then, certainly talk about it, not only on this episode, but further episodes as we come up with new theories and ideas. We're always jumping back to past guests and past ideas. Dan, did you have any other closing statements on her experience?
Well, no, but I just wanted to remark that I do genuinely appreciate you reaching out and wanting to be on the show and being vulnerable and sharing yourself, because you never know how your story will help somebody or affect someone in a positive way. And it's been really interesting hearing you account these things, because they're all very in my wheelhouse. These are all very in my realm of understanding, and so it's been it feels really good hearing you talk about these things that I'm so familiar with, because it's more confirmation for me that these people are having the same experiences that I am out there. And so just thank you for being vulnerable. And in a sense, we had a couple cancellations tonight, but it worked out perfect because it gave you more time to express yourself and share. So it all worked out perfect.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again for having me on the show, guys. And I really appreciate what you guys are doing. There's a lot of people out there that feel as though their stories make them out to be crazy, and giving these people a platform to express their experiences that they, hold so deeply within their being and their heart and their memories. It's just, I have a lot of respect for you guys. So thank you and good night.
Well, thank you as well, and you have a wonderful evening. We really appreciate it, and that's all we aim to do. So thank you for sharing your experiences, and you have a wonderful rest of your evening.
God bless.
You too. Thank you. Goodbye. So you heard it, folks. Wonderful experience that she has had on multiple occasions with alienistic visitation and sightings that kind of dipped into both of our wheelhouses here with Daniel and I. And I like that because it begs the question a lot of times, are aliens angels? Are angels aliens? Are they separate and sometimes just intermixed? Are they similar? It is hard to say because there's a lot of different races of alienistic beings that have been documented over the years, and some of them do have very angel-like qualities. So you go to wonder, in religion, were they being visited in Mesopotamia? Were they being visited in Babylonia, in these different places in Babylon? Were they being visited by aliens rather than angels, and they turned it into a religion? It is hard to say, but I thought that was very fascinating.
Yeah, no, she was great. I thought she was really sweet, and all of her stories were very much in resonant and alignment to a lot of my beliefs and experiences as well. So that was an awesome call. Really, really cool.
And it is. And folks out there, if you're listening, Dan mentioned about the intelligences within the crystals, as Lana said, almost like it was a USB drive. I can also attest to the fact that I do meditations during certain types of rituals that I do where I use crystals specifically and gemstones with meditation. And what I do during it is I go to a very deep trance-like state, the same type of state that you would use for scrying, for sigil gazing and charging, and I use that to specifically project my consciousness into the crystal itself in front of me on a platform while in the ritual circle. And I put my consciousness in that crystal, and then I blank myself out. And during which you will come down with very interesting downloads of information. You will have very wild visuals of things that have nothing to do with you, where once you, I don't want to say wake up because you're not sleeping, but once you wake up or snap out of that trance-like state, you will realize you had almost like a very vivid life-like dream of people, of events, of times and places that have nothing to do with your current version of reality. Right. And maybe they have something to do with many versions of reality you've had in the past or things elsewhere, but you'll come back and say, wait a second, I just seen a storyline, almost like you're watching a movie reel, but you don't know what the name of the movie is. So very interesting, something I thought I would share for you guys out there, something to try out. Daniel, it is your turn to tell us this wonderful story that I can't wait to hear. Why don't you go ahead and jump in and tell us a little bit about this?
Two things. Number one, I also want to share a couple little spirit hacks, a little spirit technology hacks with crystals as well, since we're on the topic.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, I don't want to disappoint anybody, but here's what I'm going to do. I am going to move my stories of the childhood home to a future episode, and that is because I was really enjoying speaking with Lana and hearing her stories, and we gave her extra time to share. And as our episode is actually coming to a close here in 10 minutes, my stories are at least going to take half hour. So let's move the stories to a future episode, and that will also give you, Frater, time to add your own stories as well, and we'll just make it a whole episode.
Sounds good to me, brother.
All right, so we'll do that. As we're winding down here, I want to give you guys some practical tools that you can use, because I'm a big fan of what Frater just said about how he transfers his consciousness into the crystals and uses them as a tool. Guys, I want you to know that crystals are a living being, just like your cats and your dogs and your house pets. But they vibrate in a different way. And what they are is they're tools that want to be used, okay? So here are two little hacks that you guys can use, crystals or your stones, or type that you resonate with, that you could put into practice right now, today, tonight. Number one, clear quartz, any type of quartz crystal, although they do come programmed with their own special abilities, they're generally speaking, like if you just get like a clear white quartz crystal, those are called amplifying tools. So what does that mean? Well, let's say you're somebody who likes to use the law of attraction to manifest things. Or let's say you're somebody who is trying to create a certain experience in their life that they want to supercharge. Or you're somebody who uses maybe magic or rituals and things like that, and you just want to add a little bit more fuel to the fire, right? Well, clear crystal quartz is an amplifying crystal. So let's say, for example, you have she mentioned tiger's eye. Well, tiger's eye will kind of have its own effects. If you pair a clear quartz crystal with your tiger's eye, or any other variant for that matter, it will just amplify the effects of that particular intention. So that's one thing that a lot of people don't know, is that just clear quartz are amplifying tools that, although they do have their own abilities on their own, they're generally used as an amplifying to something else, whether that's just a will or an intention, or an exercise that you're doing. You could hold clear quartz, you can wear clear quartz, you can put it in your pocket, and it will generally serve as an amplifier for whatever your intention is. So hack number two, which is this is something that I've always done for maybe like the past 2 years. This was an exercise that was given to me by the ET races that I channel, that you can actually take whatever crystal or stone that you resonate with the most in that moment, and this can always change, that's why I say in the moment, but take whichever one you have in your possession that calls to you, and you can actually put it directly in your water, and then you drink the water. This serves as not like a water purifier, in a sense that it's not, say, for example, cleaning out any of the contaminants in the water, but it's actually rather serving as another amplifying tool, the way that clear quartz crystal does. So you can set an intention for something that you want to experience, or you want to create, or you want to manifest, and then ask what crystal type or stone type you're called to, and then you would place that in a jug of water, or in your canteen, or even a cup of water, and then drink it. Drink the water that has been saturated with the stone, and that will also serve as an accelerator or an amplifier to whatever your intention is. So those are two little spirit tech hacks that you can use with your crystals and your stones today, that are really easy to do, and I believe they're very entry level, but also very powerful tools.
And you know what? I like that, because something else I have done in the past, I don't do it often, but I have done it, is, with my ritualistic workings, there are very larger scale rites that I do where I go all out as far as pre-ceremony ritual salt baths. and then use consecrated oils and olums, and I use that only on my temples and on my third eye chakra. I rub them on the candles that have the spirit's name carved into them. I have a lot of practices that I do to make sure that I'm fully enveloped into the workings that I'm doing. Now, I have in the past done so with crystals in the tub with the salt bath, where I lay down, turn the lights out in the room, and leave it as a darkened room. And the only thing hanging out of the water is my nose, where you're literally letting it cover your forehead and eyes, cover over your mouth, and you're leaving just enough of your nostrils out of the water to get air, and you let yourself drift away. And you are already in the salt water, you are already in the ritually charged water that you're using as a precursor to your workings. But I also have different types of crystals that I will use in that water to charge and electrify that water. And you will notice different effects, different visualizations, as I said, similar to what I had talked about before, but with a mixture and correlation with water. And it's very powerful on clearing your mind, and depending upon what you're using, you can change different facets of what's to come in the upcoming rite. And this is, once again, a spirit hack. And it'll have profound results if you do this and test it and experiment. What kind of crystals do what during what rituals? So just something else that I wanted to throw out there from what you said. With the using them in the drinking water, it's very powerful what the crystals and gemstones can
opportunity
do.
to touch on the whole crystal consciousness.
Yeah,
because,
absolutely.
Yeah, man, I'm a big fan.
I am too, man. It's something great to talk about. And folks, as Daniel talked about earlier, we will make a whole episode coming up of Daniel and I's experiences, because that can easily fill an episode. We were certainly happy to have Lana come on the show and express what it is she's experienced. If you have a story out there, if you have had an encounter of something strange, whether you understand what it was or it's just something completely baffling to you and you have no name for it, it's a cryptid no one ever has even talked about before, it doesn't matter. If you've had a profound experience, please feel free to reach out and let us know on celestialoddities@gmail.com, whether you just want to type it out for us and us to read it on the air. We have someone who just messaged us the other day with an experience like that. They don't want to come on the show, they just simply want us to read it. It didn't make tonight's episode, but it will make a future episode, and we will read that out loud, and we'll do that for any of you that don't want to come on. But if you do want to come on, let us know. We would be glad to bring you on, hear what it is you have to say, and ponder on it a little bit as we did with tonight's guest. So other than that, Dan, that's really about it for me tonight.
Yes, absolutely, guys. All of the cancellations that we had for call-ins tonight were all for the same reason. They all got called into work or had to work unexpectedly, and we completely understand that, and those things happen. So we do still have a list of people who are in line to be on the show, and I do believe we have one more call-in episode this season. Is that correct?
We do. One, we could maybe extend it to two, but we'll see. As of right now, we definitely have one, though. So there's definitely an upcoming episode with some great experiences.
Cool. Well, listen, guys, thank you very much for tuning in tonight. And if anything that we've said or anything that Lana said resonates with you, please share the episode with a friend or a family member who might benefit from it, because that was always one of our original intentions and goals of doing the show, is that we want to spread knowledge and information to ultimately help people. So other than that, we are good to go for tonight's episode on Celestial Oddities Paranormal. Guys, I just want to thank you guys for listening, and we will be back in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks, guys. Have a wonderful evening. Take care.